Warhammer 40k Necron Tactics, Immortals and Warriors. Let's delve in a little bit deeper.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, today I want to run over some advanced Necron tactics for Necron Immortals and Warriors. Before that though, if you would like to keep up to date with the wonders of Warhammer 40k, not miss a Necron upload, then please give me a sub and hit the bell button so you don't miss a video. Okay, so in today's video we're going to go table down and have a look at some advanced tactics for our two troop choices, the Warriors and the Immortals. So without further ado, let's go table down and have a look at these two units. Okay, so here we are, we've got our troop choices. Starting on the left, we've got some Immortals with our Gauze weapons. In the middle, Immortals with Tesla. And on the right hand side, we've got our Warriors with their Gauze weapons. Now stats wise, there really isn't that much difference between them. The Warriors have a 4+ save and the Immortals have a 3+ save. The Immortals have a slightly better gun option as well, and you have two guns to choose from. And the standard Immortal gun, the Gauze Blaster, is strength 5 with -2 AP, again rapid fire one shot, with the option to take the Tesla Carbine, which is a 24-inch gun, 2 shots at 24 inches, but no AP. However, any rolls of 6s you get 2 additional hits. So both guns on the Immortals are definitely better than on the Warriors, however there is a points difference. Now the Immortals come in at 17 points each, however you can have a unit of 5 to 10. The Warriors come in slightly cheaper at 12 points each, but you have to have a unit of 10 to 20. This means that the Warriors are actually more expensive than the Immortals when you're looking at small unit sizes. So if you're trying to take units of troops just to fill out a particular force organisation chart to get your command points, then potentially a small unit of Immortals is going to be the way to go. Now a maxed out unit of 10 Immortals is 170 points, and that means you could get 14 Warriors on the table for the same points cost. That's more bodies on the table. Now ever since they moved the Immortals from the Elite slot into the Troops Choice, there's always been this question of which Troops Choice is the best. Also, which unit size should I use, and also which gun option should I use. I'm going to cover all of that in this video, and also some tactics that could actually change which options you use in your armies. Okay, so I want to start off with our Backfield Objective. That's the objectives that land in our deployment zone. Usually you get at least one objective, ideally 2 or 3. These are the easy score points for objective based games. Now when placing your objectives owning a Necron army, you really want to put those objectives in terrain if you can. Having objectives out in the open isn't really beneficial for Necrons. You really want to try and get them in a piece of terrain. Now when placed in a piece of terrain, you can then start to man that objective, either with Warriors or Immortals. Now when placing objectives in the piece of terrain, you don't want to just plonk it anywhere on the piece of terrain. That actually isn't good enough. You really want to be looking at placing that objective in a central position. If you place the objective on the edge, although I can put one of my troops choices in that piece of terrain and hold that objective, remember to get your cover save, every model has to be on that piece of terrain. It means that you're leaving that objective vulnerable to somebody sneaking in at the last minute, grabbing that objective from you. There's a big gap at the front of the building. So what ideally you want to do is put that objective in a central position. Once it's in a central position, I can surround that objective and nobody is going to be able to get within 3 inches of it unless they kill you and take you off of the objective. Now generally it's always best to hold an objective with a Troops Choice, because we now have Objective Secure in 8th edition. That makes troops very powerful for taking objectives. Now which unit and which quantity you put on the objective really does depend on the army that you're using, the army list. So for example, if you're using a very aggressive list, maybe you've got the Deceiver, he's going to teleport a few units over the other side of the table. Maybe you're deep striking in flayed ones, a monolith. Maybe you're using fast units like wraiths or scarabs, something which is going forward and attacking your opponent. Well, in that case, your backfield objectives don't necessarily need a lot of points investment to hold them. And the reason for that is your enemy is going to be incredibly tied up dealing with all of your advancing units. So that means you can put the minimum amount of points onto an objective, something like this, 5 Immortals. Now when it comes to small units of Immortals, I 100% always go with Tesla. And the reason for that is at 24-inch range you get 2 shots. That's 10 shots coming in, and any 6s you roll you get 2 additional hits. Now that is a lot of shots at 24 inches. If you had 5 Gauze Immortals on there, you'd only have 5 shots. Yes, they got a better AP, but your enemy probably isn't going to be getting too close if you're playing that aggressive styled Necron list, so you're not going to get the chance to rapid fire. Now of course you can support your troop choices with HQs. I'm not really going to cover that too much in this video, but you could for example put a Cryptic in there helping with your RP rolls. You could put Illuminor in there helping to boost the stats of the units, and you can put a Overlord in there helping you with My Will Be Done, re-rolling those ones. There's lots of options with our HQs, but like I said, in this video I really want to cover the core troops units themselves. Now don't forget, once you're in that cover, you will get a 2+ cover save from the cover. That is very, very good. Now of course you are vulnerable to minus AP weapons and of course mortal wounds. However, it doesn't get much better than a 2+ cover save. If you were to put warriors in there, of course, you'd only get a 3+ cover save. Not bad, but much better to have a 2+ cover save. And I think this is where small units of Immortals can excel at holding those backfield objectives. Now if you were playing an army which wasn't quite as aggressive as the one that we've just discussed, maybe you've got some Dumarks, maybe some Triarch Stalkers, some Annihilation Barges, supported by some foot troops, something which isn't quite as aggressive but a bit more shooty, well then you may potentially have to look at supporting your backfield objectives a little bit more than just 5 guys. If your enemy isn't quite as threatened with units going forward, they can pick and choose where they shoot, and they are going to concentrate on your objective secured units holding objectives. Okay, so one way to support a backfield objective when you haven't got quite an aggressive army is to have a bigger unit on the objective. Now you could go with a unit of warriors. Warriors supported by a Cryptic and maybe a Ghost Ark can be very, very survivable and certainly a good option to go for. However, personally I think warriors have a different role on the battlefield. In actual fact, if I really wanted to secure that objective, I would put a bigger squad of Immortals on there. Okay, so adding 10 Immortals to the objective with that 2+ cover save makes that unit incredibly survivable. And in this instance I'd actually put the Gauze weapons down on these guys. Yes, okay, if I had the Tesla I would get 20 shots at 24 inches, but I think at that distance with 10 shots coming in at the -2 AP, that's going to do a lot of damage. Now combine that with an Overlord with My Will Be Done, and the chances are if you're playing this type of army you are going to have an Overlord at the back, maybe even a Cryptic for those extra RP rolls. That makes that unit very powerful. It also makes that unit have a good chance of doing some damage once the enemy starts to get close. Now there's nothing wrong with going for Tesla in this format. 20 shots coming in, potentially re-rolling the 1s and any 6s giving you those 2 extra shots. It's definitely very usable and definitely an option. In actual fact, it's fair to say that both Gauze and Tesla do have their own uses. However, like I said, in this particular scenario, I think I would go for Gauze weapons. Now, Gauze weapons do have another fantastic use for Immortals, which we're going to talk about later in the video. But first of all, I want to have another look at warriors. Okay, so we've got our 5 Immortals Tesla set up on the backfield objective. So what about warriors? What use do they have? Now for me, I find that warriors are better suited to more of an attacking role. They're cheaper, you can get more bodies on the table, they still have a pretty decent gun, and although they don't have an amazing save at 4+, we do have the reanimation protocol, and of course if you can keep them in cover, you are able to get that 3+ save. So ideally you want to be advancing your warriors. These are the units that you throw forward towards your enemy and say, hey, deal with me. Now in terms of unit size, I have talked about this in a previous video, which I'll link you up to now, just on the right hand corner. Now these units come in sizes between 10 and 20, and it's difficult working out what the sweet spot is, but it does really once again depend on how you're going to use these units. So if you're going to advance them forward, maybe outside of the range of a cryptic for example, you probably don't really want to be worrying about your RP rolls. So one way is to not worry about RP rolls. To be free of that particular rule means that you can push forward and not have to worry about being next to a cryptic or an overlord. You can just push forward, go for those central objectives. Maybe there's an objective in the middle, you can hunker forward on that objective. Now yes, I could use Immortals to do exactly the same job, to push forward and hunker down on an objective with a 2+ save. But Immortals are 50 points more expensive. And remember, we want to have enough room in the army for all the other toys that we need to help the army work. So I would suggest a couple of smaller units of warriors is a good way to push forward and be free of the RP rolls. Now the other option of course is to concentrate on the RP rolls, and that's having a bigger unit supported by a cryptic, maybe supported by an overlord for my will be done. Okay, so let's say we took a big unit of warriors, maybe we've got them supported by a cryptic and a ghost arc. This unit is going to be hard to take down. However, also it is going to be harder for you to get into cover, so you're probably only going to get the 4+ save, rather than with a smaller unit you'll get the 3+ save. And remember, an enemy that has a good amount of firepower can still focus down a unit of 20 warriors just as easily as they can a unit of 10 warriors. Now the other thing to be mindful about having a big unit of warriors is if you take heavy casualties, you might end up having to use 2 command points to keep the unit alive. So watch out, a big unit of warriors can sometimes just eat through your command points. However, having a big unit of warriors is definitely usable and potentially a good way to go, supported maybe with a couple of other smaller units. Now there is another tactic to use with a big unit of warriors. In actual fact, I'm going to bring the Immortals on the table now with their Gauls weapons, because they also come into this tactic. Okay, so here we have our Gauls weapon Immortals and a big squad of warriors. And I'm going to bring in a support unit now just to show you a particular tactic that's going to work really, really well, and to highlight the fact that both Immortals with Gauls and with Tesla both have a place in your army, and it's good to have a nice mixture of those particular weapons. Okay, so the unit that I'm going to bring in is, I'm sure you can guess, a cryptic. Now I'm bringing the cryptic in not to show you about the bonuses to the RP etc, but because what you do is you take a Veil of Darkness on the cryptic. Now be sure not to make this guy your warlord, especially if you're playing missions which have Slay the Warlord, because this guy is probably going to die. However, what he has is the Veil of Darkness to help get one of your units across the table in rapid fire range. Remember, the cryptic can use his Veil of Darkness to get within 9 inches of your enemy. And then you can set up your Immortals and your warriors within that little bubble to maintain 12-inch range for rapid fire. So imagine 20 strength 5 -2 AP shots coming into your enemy with Immortals, or 40 strength 4 -1 AP shots coming in from the warriors. This is a fantastic way to use the Veil of Darkness, and I think it highlights the fact that both Gauls and Tesla weapons have a good use in our army as long as we have a tactic for them and a reason for taking them. And of course that's all about list building, which I am going to cover in the future in my Necron series of videos. For now though, I'd love to hear your comments on Immortals. Which gun do you prefer to use, Gauls or Tesla? And regarding warriors, what unit sizes do you tend to prefer on the table? Beam me up!